Tommy Curran, what's going on this week? How you doing?
I'm great. How are you, my friend?
Oh, we're doing wonderful as usual. Always very fun to sit out free agency for the first 24-plus hours. Now going back to the legal tampering, I guess 72-plus hours. What are your thoughts on the Patriots and their approach thus far?
I thought they started really well. You did what you had to do in terms of retaining players who were your own free agents. They didn't have any tight ends on the roster. They got Hunter Henry back. Kendrick Bourne had basically the same contract we signed in 2021. Great. Michael Leonard was a must-do. So those were important re-signings. Throw in Jennings, too. Josh Uche, I'm not sure how relevant he will be going forward. But that I would give a solid B+, A- to. Spending what you needed to do to retain those guys. But really, since then, it has to be a D at the very best. And that's because your yield is virtually zero on left tackle, corner, and wide receiver. And the reason it's not an F is because you did make a run at him. You offered him in Calvin Ridley basically for 1 year, 2 years of Nelson Aguilar money, who was the only guy that you've ever really anteed up for a wide receiver. So to me, it's not what you're looking for. And I do start to think and wonder, guys, how much does this alter their draft plan? If you weren't able to do these things in free agency, does it alter what you want to do in April?
Right, and I definitely want to hit on that. But before we get to that, when you look at what happened with Calvin Ridley, does he seem like a guy who you should have extended yourself even further for because of how bad your roster is at that position right now? Or was it a smart move to basically just cut it off where they seem to cut it off?
I think it's really hard to answer that. By any means necessary, we have to get this player in order to do ... What? Win 7 games? Win 9 games? I mean, to me, if you're going to pay Calvin Ridley $25 million a year, give him not a $92 million contract, but, 4 times, $100 million contract. And then you're going to have him sitting there saying, well, I don't have state tax in Tennessee, and I don't have a millionaire's tax in Tennessee or Jacksonville, for that matter. You have to pay me even more than that. Plus, who's your quarterback? I really want to know whether or not Calvin Ridley would have come here at any price, or if the Patriots were a stalking horse. So there has to be a point at which you push away from the table on a player like that. He's not one of the best receivers in the league. He's not, and when I say that, I mean he might be somewhere around 10 to 15. He's not one of the top 10 guys. Would you agree or disagree with that?
No, I'd agree with that. No, I'd agree with that. He's probably outside the top 10. I'd say he's certainly in the top 20. He's by far the best that they have. Do you really, were they that close? Like when you say at a point you have to push away, fine, I agree with that. There's probably a line on every player eventually. They were that close to the line. They were that close to Tennessee's offer.
Well, if you get to 22, which is reportedly where they were, and Tennessee's at 23, that's close. Now, structure we don't know about.
That's what I mean.
But what was the guaranteed money? I mean, you can't go with a straight face and say we're going to give you a 90 or an $88 million contract, and only 25 of it's guaranteed. So, I mean, I'm sure that it had to be in that neighborhood. I do think I'm not saying it's good by any stretch, because they are still a team without a high-end wide receiver, but I'm not sure if Calvin Ridley was that high-end wide receiver. I think there was more of an effect that it would have had on the perception of the Patriots had they landed him. And are you going for effect, or are you going to build the team? To me, you're going to build the team, and there are lumps that are going to have to be taken and slings and arrows that you're going to have to absorb, which they are doing right now.
Jacina Anderson basically, Tom, said that the Patriots aren't going to be active going after any other free agent wide receivers, that they're going to go through the draft. Could that mean maybe a trade, or do you think it's more likely they just pick a receiver with one of their later picks?
Probably picking receivers, but, I think that interpreting Josina's tweet, not to say that it wasn't accurate, but I think everything is a moving target. Like, for instance, who emerges? What do you think of Mike Williams? Are you saying we're out on everybody? I think that would be a premature stance to take, and certainly since it's a collaboration there, whoever said that, I don't know if that was a collaborated upon statement. So I wouldn't say with great clarity that this is what the Patriots will do. They won't sign a wide receiver in free agency. So I would find that, honestly, I'd find that a little dubious to make that claim right now, that no wide receivers will be added in terms of we're out on wideouts. Or what was the phrasing again?
Let me pull the
that
tweet
tweet,
up.
They're
but-
going to sit it out, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you're not sitting anything out.
They
You
will
gotta be
mainly turn
involved.
their attention to the draft to address wide receiver. They're told they've moved on. Splashes come in the
Yeah.
win-loss column, which I like that little part of that little flair at the end there.
Yeah, to me, I can't imagine that the Patriots as a unit would say we're out on it. I do think it is maddening, again, though, as we sit here, to ignore the less than a year ago on both individuals, Jacoby Myers and DeAndre Hopkins. They were there for combined less than what you were offering Calvin Ridley. So these are mistakes that were made that the Patriots continue to pay the price for. And they're a 4-3 team, and they're going to continue to pay the price for being a bad team, for not having a quarterback, for not having players that succeeded that they drafted, and for missing on free agents. And that's the reality. That there are – I don't know if Bill would be getting a security deposit back on this apartment.
Okay.
It was great for a long time, but the condition it was left in 2024 is so bad that there's a lot of rebuilding and reworking to be done before you can even bring it out and let people visit, come in and visit.
So I heard you saying some of this on television last night on NBC Sports Boston. It's Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. You can check out Patriots Talk Podcast, Quick Slants. You can check him out Tuesdays with Gresham Fourier. He's here today with Jones and Mego on WEEI. They're still paying for Bill's mistakes, which on one level I get. I mean, the team is in a bad spot because of roster decisions Bill made. But when you say paying, it's just a funny word because a way to fix those mistakes is by paying some free agents, and they haven't done it. I know you're down on their free agency, but at what point do we stop looking at Bill's mistakes and we start saying, well, what are they doing to fix them? I feel like that's very lacking.
I would say more than 72 hours into free agency. I mean, we just talked about the offer made, which is double any offer that Bill ever made to a wide receiver for $22 million, which we both agreed would be an overpay for a guy who's not a top 10 guy. It's going to take a long time to dig out. It took a long time for them to get to this point. So I think you can do both. You can second guess, backseat drive on the decisions that this group makes and say, well, you should have gotten Calvin Ridley. But you also have to understand every time you're taking a quarterback at number 3 years after you took one at number 15, why you're taking a quarterback at number 3. So there are aspects that are always interlinked with these teams. And again, I mean, it's hard to go balls to the wall on full criticism of what they've done so far when it's 72 hours into free agency and there's just not that much on the shelves that's a layup to fix. What should they do? If you want to create something, because there is no test tube where you can just mix it up and make yourself a wide receiver, then you have to be aggressive on the trade market. Is that smart for a rebuilding team? You get T. Higgins. To what end? So you're a 7-win team or an 8-win team? So you can have somebody that, you can throw to if you're Jacoby Brissett? Or do you, reserve the ability to keep that draft pick? Don't put a whole crap ton of money into the contract for T. Higgins, which is going to be more than $92 million now that Calvin Ridley's getting what he is, and just take your time with it. I mean, there is merit to it. I know it's not as juicy to talk about day in and day out as criticizing them for not doing it is, but you do have to take your medicine for the hole that they were dug and put into.
Yeah, I guess and again, some of this was Bill, but it's like I thought they had been taking medicine. I thought part of the reason they weren't spending the last couple of years in free agency was taking medicine. So I think that's where I get frustrated. I understand it's early in free agency.
Wait a minute. Didn't they pay the last few years? How much did they pay in free agency in 2021?
Oh,
2021
a ton, but 2022 and 2023, hardly anything. And on
well,
balance,
why do you think that was? It's because they spent it all in 2021.
I guess. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Over the last 10 years,
you don't spend a whole crap ton of money every single year in free agency.
I get that. Over the last 10 years, they're dead last in spending.
That's a different conversation.
Is it?
Isn't it?
No.
Because, yes, it is. Because right now we're talking about whether or not they're spending in free agency, and you say, well, they haven't been, and they did. They did, and it didn't work. They drafted the wrong guys the last 5 years. They picked the wrong free agents.
But they're re-signing some of the guys they got in 2021, and we're giving them credit for that. I mean, they're bringing back Henry and Bohr. Like, those were guys they got in free agency in 2021, and those are pretty much the only guys they've signed.
Both guys have ACLs. Was there a huge market for either one? And they were the best guys on the market. Not certainly Kendrick Bourne, but Hunter Henry was the number 2 ranked tight end. I mean, there's just nothing to shop for. You're screaming at them for coming back to the car without groceries, and there was nothing in the shelves.
I know, but they wanted Ridley, so I think that's the frustration.
So
100%, and I agree with that. And I would be frustrated too if I was a fan, especially if they sat on their hands and said, "No, I'm not doing it."
But looking ahead to the draft, when you look at how free agency is played out, and even over the last couple of weeks, starting with the franchise tags that were put out, all of a sudden the wide receiver market looks so much smaller to the point that you're betting it all on Ridley and not getting there. Does that make you feel more strongly about what they should do in terms of the quarterback and the number 3 pick? It's where we started our show today.
I'm really starting to feel like you might want to just put a for sale sign on that pick and see how quickly you can start to get people. I was just talking to Thor Nystrom, who I think is one of the best draft.
Oh, I like his
guys.
Draft analysis, yeah.
He's awesome. And you'll love this. I know you're a regular listener, which we appreciate, to the Tom Curran Patriots Talk podcast. He's friggin' fantastic. And he likes J.J. McCarthy a significant amount more than Drake May.
Oh.
Can I tell you, Tom, like, I'm starting to look that way a little bit. Way a little bit. It might be my Midwestern roots.
Oh, God.
I don't know why is there a backbeat of eye rolling and oh no's with you all the time?
Because when crappy quarterbacks get brought up, I don't like it. That's all. I like Drake May. I like Jaden Daniels. I don't like J.J. McCarthy. So, oh, God.
So, all right. Be that as it may. He makes a very good point that because this is a 4-quarterback draft, and most of the people within the NFL have felt that way now for at least a month or two, then whoever's at number 3, if the Patriots can get that team, say, for instance, Minnesota, who has Sam Darnold at quarterback, if you can get them to give you their 11th overall pick, a second-round pick this year and next year's one, which actually does, by the Kelly Blue Book, measure up with what you're talking about, then you can go get your tackle. You can get your second round wide receiver, and you can come back next year with your own first-round pick and the Vikings' first-round pick, and they ain't going to be so good next year either. So you'd have 2 first-round picks next year, and you would have been able to continue to build. I think if you are the Patriots right now, this isn't a quick rebuild. Start to grab picks and make yourself more mobile.
Okay. I mean, look, I know you feel that way. What did you get swayed on J.J. McCarthy at all? Did Thor sway you on that?
Well, I don't think I'm not a leaf in the wind. I'm going to try and look at it a little more closely than I did previously for some of the things that he mentioned. I mean, the athleticism of J.J. McCarthy relative to Drake May is not even a comparison in terms of speed and mobility and the ability to escape. Drake May is not really. He's a fine athlete. He's better than Mac Jones, but he is not the second coming of Josh Allen, which I think some people have confused him for. So I think there are aspects to what J.J. McCarthy does that bear a much longer look, and I think the league itself is going to give him a much longer look, regardless of what Tom Curran does.
Okay. He's Tommy Curran. Check out the Pats Talk podcast with Thor Nystrom on NBC Sports Boston. You can also check out his work here on WEEI, as we said, Tuesdays with Gresham Fourier and Thursdays with Jones and Mego. Tom, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. See ya.
All right.
Thanks, Tommy.
Tommy Curran, as all our guests, joins us on the Harbor One Hotline.